Hi all. Yeah, thanks everyone for joining in on time. Yeah, let's give it another minute and then we'll get started. Okay. Yeah, just a few things to keep in mind. Just during the session, just keep your mute and microphone switched off and your webcam as well. I think at the moment you won't be able to do that. But if you have any questions, please send it in to during the session. Just send it in via the chat function or the Q&A section. When you are sending it in through the chat section, please select so that the questions are visible to everyone. So then it'll be easier for us to see the questions, and then we can see what the question is, and then we can take it up. Okay. And yeah, and just let me know if at any point my connection sort of breaks or something. I can like off the video if that's not really required. But yeah, just try to be in a place where your internet connection is also somewhat stable. Okay. Yeah, so I think we can get started then. So yeah, hi everyone, and thanks for joining in today's session. So this is our first webinar that we're having for 2021-2022 our candidate council list of activities. So this has been a popular event free webinar that we've been having a couple of times as well. So I think because there's a lot of new things to learn with the CBT exams. So this would be, so what I broadly want to cover in this is to give you an update on what are some of the new developments with regard to the computer-based testing. So I won't be going over each and every detail on the computer-based testing, since we've already covered a lot of that in our previous webinars. And I think the last one we did was in August. Sorry, I think we did one in Feb as well, if I'm not mistaken. So I think that I'll share it at the end. What are the other, so the recordings for those are also available on our YouTube channel. So if you want more details about those specifics, go to that as well. So here I'll mainly be looking at some of the newer information and the new resources that the CFA Institute has shared with regard to the computer-based testing. I think another important thing I want to stress on and to share some resources on that and really show you some, particularly some videos that has been done by the CFA Institute as well as other providers on this process of registering and scheduling the exam. I think that's somewhere where a lot of there's a lot of confusion and there's a lot of uncertainty with that thing. Yeah, I'll be sharing those at the end in this resource. So I'll also be sharing this handout as well. So that will have the links to the particular video. So if you go on the CFA Sri Lanka YouTube page, you will find those the past sessions of this we've had as well. Okay. Yeah, so that's what I want to cover, as well as something specifically on the exam software. Because I think we have more information now about the software that is used and some of the things to keep in mind with using that. So just to share some video resources on that. Then also to share the exam day experience. And we have a candidate who is also who will be sharing their practical experience with what the exam day experience was like, because this is something new. Myself and most of the other in the CFA candidate council, the committee, we up to this point the CFA has only been doing the paper-based exam. So now the computer-based testing is like a completely different sort of environment and experience. So we're lucky to have some candidates who'll be willing to share that. And also, if any of you have already done some of the already done a computer-based testing here, please let us know, drop a message in the chat, and we can ask you to if you're free, you can to share your experience, unmute yourself and share your experiences of how you ran. So that would be useful for the other candidates as well. Okay. And finally, just some Q&A that you have. Okay. Yes. So just to get started, First thing, in terms of the update that has now been, some clarification that the Institute has given with regard to the testing cycles for when it comes to the CFA exam. So, 2020 and 2021, there were, various changes that happened to, in terms of when you can take the different exams and things like that because of the COVID related restrictions. Even in 2021, there have been like additional exam cycles that the CFA has made available because of those things. But from what CFA has said, from 2022 onwards, this is going to be the standard thing. Of course, even this might be subject to change, if again, the pandemic related situation kind of continues into next year as well, these things might change. But broadly, this is what they are looking at in terms of the structure, in terms of going forward. So level 1 will be offered 4 times of a year, and these are the slots: Feb, May, August, and November. Level 2 will be in this February, August slot, so 2 times a year, and level 3 will be May, November is the slot that you're looking at. So an important point to note with regard to this is that you cannot register for adjacent exams. So what that means is that, for example, if you register, so what that means is that you need to have at least a 6-month gap between 2 points between doing the exams. And this doesn't matter whether you have succeeded in the exam or not. So for example, if someone took the level 1 exam in May 2022, you can't register for the level 2 exam to do the exam in August, okay, because there's not enough time. 6 months have not passed there, okay. So you need to wait till February of the following year to do that level 2, okay. So same thing goes, if say in February you did the level 1 exam and you were not successful, you can't take it in May. You'll have to wait till August. There has to be a gap, a 6-month gap between when you can take the exam. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. So this also means that, theoretically, if you plan things out well, if you're very confident, it's possible, given this, the way they have structured it, it's actually possible to, to complete, theoretically, it's possible to complete the exam, all 3 in like 1.5 years. If you start in February, you do the level 1 exam in that year, then in August, you would take the level 2, and then May of the following year, you take the level 3. So it's, theoretically it's feasible to do that, if you're capable and you feel confident to do that. But this is the regular cycle that they're expecting in terms of the exam taking going forward. Okay. So yeah, so if while I'm going through this, if you have any questions, just do drop it in the Q&A or the chat, and then at the end of the Q&A section we can take those up. Okay. In terms of the exam scheduling window, so this is what has been disclosed so far. Again, always though, go to the CFA Institute website and check what the latest timings on these are, because some of these might change. Sometimes the registration deadlines for the scheduling and things like that also get shifted around because of the the COVID and the restrictions that are taking place. So this is what we have, I think, as of a month or 2 back, but do check the website. Always check the website for the latest available update. And usually if there is a change, the CFA Institute would be sending an email update about that. If you're registered for a particular exam or scheduled for a particular window, exam window. So, be mindful and, always check whether you're receiving those emails from the Institute about that. Okay. So far, this is what we have. And I think an important thing is, I think when the shift was made to this computer-based testing, I think a very important shift that happened is in terms of that registration and the scheduling process. So previously with the paper-based testing, it was just one thing, since you didn't have a choice with the exam date. When you register for the exam, to take it in December or June, as it was those days, the exam is automatically scheduled as well, because there's only one day, there's no choice with that, but now, given that the exam is now taking place within this exam window, you have a choice in terms of the dates and the times that you can schedule it. Okay. So because of that, this registration and the scheduling has been broken up into this two-step process. So that's why you see this two things over here, where they say the date that the registration closes and when the scheduling is closed. So there are two different time periods for that. So you need to be mindful because this is now a two-step process. So to highlight about that, the CFA has, so I think a lot of candidates, I think this is something which has tripped up a lot of candidates a lot, this aspect. So because of that, the Institute has also been providing more resources about this. So one useful thing I found was on their website, they have this thing called how to register and schedule the exam. So this video that they've put up. So I think let's go through that for the moment. And then later, if you have any questions about that, we can discuss that as well. So the link is also provided there. But yeah, I think it would be useful for everyone to go through it if you haven't seen this before. Yes, I believe you should be able to hear the sound as well. Just let me know if you have difficulty hearing the sound.
CFA Institute has transitioned exclusively to computer-based testing and has chosen Prometric and British Council to administer exams globally. By modernising its approach, CFA Institute is able to provide smaller exam settings and more exam dates with more locations, enabling more flexible scheduling options. This video will guide you through the registration and scheduling process for your CFA exam. Step 1. Registering for the CFA exam. Registering for your CFA exam is now a two-step process. You may enroll in the CFA exam through the CFA Institute website. If this is your first time signing up for an exam, you must first create an account. Select the My Enrollment tab on your CFA program tile. This page provides your current exam status and a Register Now button for the CFA program exam. First, select the exam cycle you wish to register for. Exam cycles and registration prices that are available to you are listed here. If you have a deferral coupon in your account, your adjusted price will display when you reach the payment page. Next, select the country or region based on your current mailing address. Enter your current mailing address. If you are a resident of mainland China, you will be asked to complete contact and identification information on this page. Enter your passport information. Please note that the name on your passport must match the name on your registration. Check the expiration date on your passport to make sure that it will be valid on exam day. If it will expire before your exam, take action to update your passport so that it is current on exam day. You will be asked to select your status for entry requirements to the Level 1 exam. Please note that you must have a bachelor's degree or your exam window must be 11 months or fewer before your graduation month for your bachelor's degree. Alternatively, you may meet the prerequisite requirements for professional experience. Next, you will be provided with a privacy notice and candidate agreement. Please read these and accept the terms as outlined. You may then save and continue your registration. Your program registration summary is displayed with your chosen exam level, exam cycle and price. If this is your first time registering for CFA program, you will also see a one-time enrollment fee. You will next proceed to the shopping cart to pay for your exam. Payment must be received to complete your exam registration. You may pay by credit card or Alipay or choose Pay by Invoice during the early registration window only. Please note that if you choose Pay by Invoice, your exam registration will not be complete until payment is received. When payment is completed, you will receive a registration confirmation with your order number. This completes Step 1 of the process. Step 2. Scheduling your exam. Step 2 of registration for your CFA exam requires you to select your exam location and preferred exam date by the scheduling deadline. Your registration is not complete until you take this step. If you do not take this step, you will not be able to sit for your exam. After you complete the registration process and your payment is processed, you will see the Schedule Your Exam option in your CFA program tile. To schedule your exam, go back to the My Enrollment page and click Schedule Your Exam. This will take you to the Prometric scheduling tool, where you will be presented with available testing centres with dates and times. Enter your preferred location and testing dates to check your options. Search by city and country to return a more accurate list of locations. The search function will return test centres within a 200-mile radius. You will be offered available locations, test dates and times. Choose from the available options. After you make your selection, your chosen appointment will be displayed. Make sure to click the Complete Appointment button at the bottom right to finish scheduling your exam dates. Your exam schedule will be confirmed. Your registration is now complete. Your CFA program tile will now show your confirmed appointments. You will also receive a confirmation email from Prometric with your exam details.
Yeah, hope that was clear to everyone. So yeah, so just please go to that link if you want any further help on that, insights on that. So I think that's a very useful one to note. The other thing to note is now, as the video also explained, that because of this two-step process, what has also now happened is that the communication is now going to be split between the CFA Institute as well as the test provider, which is Prometric in the case of Sri Lanka and most of the world as well. So which means you need to be mindful of the type of communication and where you're getting it from. So at the registration part, that is basically handled by the CFA Institute. So any, anything relating to registration, if you have any queries to clarify with regard to that, then your contact point for that would be the CFA Institute. Okay, and this is showing the type of the information that they would be providing. So, the registration, everything related to the registration process. And they would also give you those updates, if there's a deferral option for the exams, if they have extended the testing windows, etc., new testing opportunities, etc., it would be the CFA Institute that would communicate that. Then once it comes to the scheduling, that's where you would be getting contacts from Prometric. So those confirmation emails, the reminders they send, if there's an update to the venue, etc., those would all be by Prometric. And I believe they also said that you can sign up for like these SMS notifications and things like that. So yeah, all of those will be handled by them. Okay. So yeah, so any additional communication, these are things that would come up. So anything relating to rescheduling and things like that, those are things again that the Prometric would have to communicate. Location changes, date changes, etc. Exam appointments being cancelled and things like that. So given the current context, that's always something to watch out for. So be always on the lookout for any communications from them. When it comes to any things like option deferrals, new additional exam cycles being made available, etc., those would come from the CFA Institute. So be mindful in terms of who you need to communicate, whether it's Prometric or whether it's the CFA Institute on the different matters. Okay. Other things that were sort of like disclosed as well by the CFA Institute. So typically with this, so you have the testing window, and what they've said is that, the amount of slots that are made available in terms of the number of dates and the number of time slots that are made available for candidates to choose from. So that really depends on the market and the number of candidates that are registering for each exam. So typically, if there are more candidates sitting for a particular exam window, there would be more options to choose from, or there would be more dates and times that are made available. So it depends on the numbers. Also, but typically though, there are two sessions, a morning and an afternoon slot that you can register for this. And given that overall the exam time is also less, it's more easier to accommodate this. Okay. They're saying, so depending on how it's structured, sometimes you can choose this, other times you may not be able to choose it. You may just only be able to choose the date at which you can have the exam. Other important thing, which is I think we get a lot of queries about this as well, that sometimes what might happen is when you, as soon as the scheduling window opens, if you go to schedule an exam, sometimes those specific details, maybe only the dates are available. When you select for Sri Lanka, when you're doing this, you might not be able to all the details relating to the venue, the time and things like that may not yet be updated. Okay, so those details would come later usually. So once you if you're able to schedule the exam, probably you will get the confirmation of the scheduling, and probably closer to the exam date you might get those the venue and those kind of details. Okay, and currently in the current context, it's more likely for those kind of things to happen because there's so many uncertainties with all the lockdowns and things like that happening, restrictions and things like that, that might happen. So always be mindful of that. Okay. Yeah, so just to reemphasize, these are the things. So one thing also is that the CFA Institute as well as Prometric, they have now improved sort of like the communications, because there's been a lot of queries about, the exams. So Prometric, if you go to their website on this, and the link is also provided here, you'll be able to see there's an FAQ section, which is dedicated for the CFA candidates, where you can get some of those information, some general information about the test centers and things like that. You can get more information there, as well as the CFA Institute. Also, they have put more sort of like information about all these things, and particularly these things like when it comes to refunds and the deferral policies and the cancellations and things like that. So all of those, there would be individual websites which has a lot of these information. So that's it in terms of the registration and the scheduling process. Next thing I want to briefly go over is the CBT exam structure. So I think from the last update we did, I think there was much more clarity that was given on this, and I think we went into detail about the exam for the different levels. So broadly, this hasn't changed. This is still same as that last update we did. The structure hasn't changed. This is the structure that will be there going forward for the 3 levels. One thing they have done is the CFA Institute has provided more details about that exam, the question formats and things like that, for each level. So that's a bit of additional information they provided. So if you go to these links, you can find those details. So I won't go over those now. You can just look at those depending on the level. But something would like to go over is in terms of the exam software. You need to be a bit familiar with it. So one thing they have made available is on the Prometric website. There is like an exam tutorial that they have where you can register. There's like a dummy account that can be created, and you can like do like a mock sort of exam that is there for you to test out the system. But I felt it might be useful for you to have sort of like an update in terms of what the look and feel of the software looks like. So there's this video I have found done by someone who's like taking you through that level 2 and level 3, because I think, level 2, since it's mostly MCQ, it's also equally applicable to level 1. Level 3 also, because you have that the structured response section. How do you do that in the context of a CBT exam? So let's just quickly go over that tutorial now. So let me just load that up. Yeah, again, let me know if you can't hear the sound for this. I think it should be this.
Another update on the computer-based testing for CFA exams. So there has been an update on Prometric's website for the CFA program on their exam software tutorial. So if you click over to tutorial, and then you click OK, accept the terms and press continue, then they have made some changes here. So I'll just start the test. So now on the website, on this site, you can actually see question 2, 4, and 5, there's an arrow for a drop-down box, something like a drop-down, where if you click it, then you will see the sub-questions like 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, and 2.4. So if I click on 2.1, okay, the screen will be split into two parts. Okay, on the left-hand side, we have the case scenario, and on the right-hand side, you have the question. Okay, in terms of highlighting, it seems that you cannot highlight the case scenario, but you can still highlight the question. Okay, but I would have preferred to be able to highlight the case scenario. So I'm not sure whether this is the exact same function in the actual exam. Okay, that is yet to be seen. But let's say in the case where you are not able to highlight, then I guess the best way to go about is when you read the case, okay, you can highlight it with your mouse, okay, just to focus on that particular section. Okay, in the exam, the screen will be split into two automatically, so you don't have to worry about whether you have to click any button to enable this screen. Okay, so there may be a case scenario button here where you can click and then they will close the screen, the case, but you don't have to. I mean, in the exam, it won't be that complicated. You can still cross out the question, the answers that you think is not possible. Okay, you can still flag the sub question itself. If you answer, then the question label here will turn shaded. Okay, then you can move on to the next question. So you can go by the sequence in this case. Now, if I move on to question 4, okay, it seems that they will still have the topic heading at the top of the case scenario. So in the exam, you can scroll to different questions to start. You don't always have to start with the first case. Okay, if let's say the first case is derivatives and that is not really your core area or your strongest area, then always skip around and see which section, okay, is something that you can start with and you're confident with that topic area. If you are good with equity, then look around for equity topic. Okay, of course, usually in the paper-based exam, on the first page or the second page, there will be a listing of all the topics in that particular session. I'm not sure if that will be the same for the computer-based testing, but that will remain to be seen for the coming May exam. But as of now, you can scroll to each question and see if this is a topic that you are confident with. If not, then you can skip. Okay. Then for the level 3 exam, okay, same thing as well. You have the topic at the top of the page of the case scenario, and on the right hand side you have either a free text box where you can enter your workings or your calculations. You can change the font size. You can set whether to bold or to italize or to underline, to align. Okay, you can have special symbols here, special characters. You can enter math formula either by clicking on this button or you can press Ctrl M. Okay, and that and then they will insert the math editor. Right, you can undo and redo, and you can set your indentation. Then here 5.2, there is just a fill in the blank here. It seems that for this type of questions, you can only fill in the answers. If you get it right, then you're right. If it's wrong, then you will get no marks. So if there is no empty box for you to fill in your workings, then pay close attention to the instruction, whether they want you to answer in percentage or whether they want you to answer in decimal, and how many decimal places do they want you to insert. Okay, they will give you the instructions, just follow according to it, right? Now for 5.3, it's the same thing as well. It's also a fill in the blank. 5.4, okay, it's a calculation question, but then there is a free text box here for you to fill in your workings. Okay, so of course for calculation based questions, if you get the answer right, you will get full marks. But of course, if your final answer is incorrect, then the examiner will look at your workings, okay, to give you, if it's right, if your workings is right, then you will get partial credit from that. Okay, so that's how it will be for level 3 for session 1, the constructed response. For level 2, this is how it will look like. Case scenario on the left, questions on the right. Same thing for level 3, session 2 item sets. It will also be a 2 screen. Okay, left hand side will be the case scenario, right hand side will be the questions. Okay, now then at the bottom you have your section review, where you can actually review the question itself or the sub question. Okay, so if I have bookmarked question 2.1, then the overall question 2 will be bookmarked, just to indicate that you have bookmarked something, a question or more than one question within this case number 2. Okay, so you can click on it and then you can click 2.1 to hover over to question 2.1. All right, if you want to scroll between different questions without closing the panel, then you can always lock the panel and you can scroll freely with the panel still open. Then you can click close to manually close it. All right, you can also filter by attempt or flagged, okay, to specifically focus on questions that you want to review, for example. Okay, then of course once done, okay, when the timer ends, the exam will end as well and the result will be automatically submitted. But if you have completed it ahead of time and you don't think that you want to continue, you can just click finish test, okay, and click finish again, and you have to click finish again, okay, then officially the exam will end. Right, so with about, I think level 1 is starting in on the 18th of
Okay, yeah, so I think that hopefully gives you an overview of what to expect in terms of the exam structure, in terms of what to see in terms of the look and feel of the exam. So yeah, so would encourage everyone to go through that tutorial, that is available on Prometric, to get a sense of what the look and feel of it is. So just another small update that was given is with regard to the exam structure. So overall, in most cases, the exam is going to be this 5.5 hours is the type of timing that is there for most of the for pretty much for all 3 levels. So that's for the entire exam. So the total time has been cut down. But one thing that was also made clear was the exam is divided into these 2, the first and the second session. And one thing that was made clear on this is that the 30-minute that break is an optional break. So if you don't want any break, or you just want like a 10-minute break or something, you can do that. You don't need to take the full 30 minutes. It's a maximum of 30-minute break that you can take for it. But if you feel you don't need a break, you can just straight away move on to the second session. Okay. But another important point to note is that given the way it is structured, same as it is with the paper-based testing as well, where you have the morning session and then the afternoon session. You complete the morning session, then you have the break, then you have the afternoon session. So once you start the afternoon session, you can't go back to the morning session. So same thing will be there with the computer-based testing as well. Once you have submitted that first session, you completed that first part of the exam, and you take the break or you don't take the break. Once you start on the second session, you can't go back to the other side. Okay. Yeah, I see someone has raised their hand. Yeah, do you have a specific question to ask at this point? Yeah, if not, you can please put in your question at the in the text box, in the chat or the Q&A. Okay, thanks. Yeah, so that's how it is structured. So the break is kind of like an optional thing. The other thing is, so you can't use that optional break, the 30 minutes for to give yourself extra time in the exam. It doesn't work that way. Once you start the second session, it has 2 hours and 15 minutes. That's the time that you have for it. Okay, so that 30 minutes, if you don't want to take that such a long break, you can you can take a shorter one or take the full 30 minutes. There's no penalty for that. Okay. Yeah, so that's something to keep in mind. Other few details that have come up, and these are some of the responses that the CFA Institute has given in clarification to some questions that I think a lot of the candidates have also had with regard to the exam. So one is with regard to the questions. So I think one question they've had is whether they are dynamic. So what they mean by dynamic question is whether, if you answer the first question, then say if you answer the first question correctly, does that affect what is the second question you see? do they give you a harder question or something like that? Is it dynamically getting updated? But from what the institute has said, no, there are no dynamic questions that are given. Everything, it's like a standard one. So, but of course, the particular exam, I mean, one thing is, of course, the CFA Institute doesn't disclose, what the final sort of like you don't ever see like past papers of the CFA exams, so so I mean, it's never really clear whether, is everyone seeing the same exam, so someone who is getting tested in a particular exam window. But what they have said is there will be a pool of questions that are available, and from that only they'll be drawing for the specific exam windows that you sit for. It will be based on that. Okay, so there might be variation in the particular depending on the date you sit and things like that, but important point is there are no dynamic questions. Then the other thing they made clear is about that showing your working. So I think in the video also what they showed was that depending, there might be certain situations in those structured response question where the expectation is for you to just to give the answer, not to show any workings at all. So in those situations, you need to show that, but they're expecting is just show that answer, and the working doesn't matter. If you get the right answer, you get the full marks for it. Also, what they said was you can, unless they specifically like they say, you have to give it in numbers, in percentage term to these 2 decimal places, unless they specify like that. Other times you can say it, say if the answer is 43, you can just write, in numbers 43, or, in words, say 43, so yeah, so, as long as it's clear what you're trying to say, that is fine. But when it comes to workings, what they say is that if there is like a text box where you can use that math equation as they showed in the video, then you can use that to, if you want to show your workings, okay? If not, but it's not required, so, I mean, most people like do the workings because then ideally it might be more, unless you're really pressed for time, usually, I mean, again, I think once you if you have come for some of our past master classes on the structured response sessions as well, you understand that what the examiners are expecting is not for you to write this long sort of essay for the questions. They're expecting you to write to the point. But if you feel it's useful to show the workings, you can do that. And if you get even if your final answer is not right, what they say is that if the workings are correct, you might get some partial credit. So it depends on the examiner and how those marking schemes are working. Okay. Other things that was told was that I think in the video also they highlight is you can't highlight things on the case study itself. I mean, that's something I would expect maybe potentially in the future they might do an update to allow for that, but you can only highlight things within the question, not in the particular case study. So something to keep in mind. For numerical questions, they said you can either use the math editor or you can just verbally say it. If you need to say 4 times 8 plus 3 or something, is that 4 plus, is that what you want to show? Either you can show it using the mathematical notations in the editor, or you can just write it out like a sentence. Both are acceptable. Okay. Another important thing that was clarified, which I think a lot of people get confused about, is that progress bar. I think in the video you saw that when you're answering the question, they show that progress bar on the top. That progress bar is showing the progression for the full exam. It's not for it doesn't show it separately for the first and the second session. So, so essentially when you come to the end of that first session, you basically completed 50% of the exam. So just be mindful, you might be wondering, okay, you have only 2 hours, 15 minutes for the first session, but it seems like you have a lot of more to go. But just keep in mind that's for the full exam. Okay. The other thing that was made clear, I think in the previous update also we talked about this, is something that made clear was the topics for each session. It will the first, so unlike in the case it was previously with level 1 and level 2 exams, where all 10 modules were tested in both the morning and the afternoon session. Now they won't be testing all 10 in a given in the first session and the second session. There will be a certain set of the modules that will be tested in the first half, certain set of modules that will be tested in the second half. So that was a clarification that was made about that. Okay. Another important thing that was highlighted, hopefully you won't experience problems like this, but as they showed in the video, the default view is that you will see it in this way, particularly for level 2 and level 3 exams. This is important because you see case studies where you see the case study on one side and the questions on the other side. Okay, but there are some situations, what the CFA Institute has also highlighted, where the viewing experience may differ depending on the size of that screen. So I'm guessing that most of them, there is some sort of criteria, like a minimum size for the computer screen and things like that, where I think the way they have set it up, the default view is where you have this side-by-side view. But there are some situations where it might be, if there is some resource constraint, that it might look like this, where, you'll have to toggle between the question and the case study. Okay, so just something to be mindful of. Okay. Yeah, so that's something to be mindful of. And I think now we come to the section. Yeah, and if you have any questions, please do put in in the chat. So yeah, I think now we move on to the session where we have Delshi, who will be sharing her insights on what it was like to do the computer-based testing here, what was like the practical sort of experience on the day. So Delshi, over to you. And anyone else, if you have done a computer-based exam in the past, please let us know. Please feel free to let us know, and we can then allow you to unmute yourself. And you can share your experience as well, because this would be very useful for the candidates sitting, what sort of experience, can you sort of expect on that exam day. So yeah, Delshi, over to you.
Thank you, Travis. So the CBT was actually much better than I expected. It was my first experience. I've never done a paper-based exam before, so it was much better than I expected. And I had my exam at ACBT. So there were just 6 or 7 candidates, and I just had to take my passport, and Prometric will send you your something like a statement of entry with all your details in. And your calculator, and if required, you're allowed to take a bottle of water, a transparent bottle. I was told you're not allowed to, but eventually invigilators let me in. And as I went in, the computers were really spaced out. I mean, the best part was we didn't have this distraction. Usually, even if it's paper based, you can still see invigilators walking, you can see others doing the exam, and that will itself, intensify, you give you some kind of pressure. But over here, it was just me and my screen, and I had the shield kind of thing on either side of me. So it was just me and my questions. So I realized as I kept on doing the questions, I was relieved as well. And another thing is, my other advice is, I would recommend you all to do the Willy mock exam, because I realized your exam format and the mock exam is the same thing. There is no change. So you have your list of questions on your left-hand side, and when you keep doing it, it'll turn green. And if you don't do a question, it will turn gray. So it will give you an insight. Okay, I haven't attempted this question, so I can come back, because I generally don't flag or I do nothing. So that itself helps me out to come back and do the question. And yes, you have a timer running on the right hand side of the screen, and once you're done with the exam, you can just say finish exam, you can go out for a break, or still you can just continue with the exam. But I would say it's better if you have to take 5 to 10 minutes just to refresh yourself. And moreover, yes, you are given a sheet and a pen to work out. So it's just like, if you practice enough and more questions at home, I mean, even the CFA website provides you more questions, that's done online. So you just have to work it, and just a matter of entering your answers online. It's very comfortable, very convenient. So I just took about 5 to 10 minute break, and I came in. So as you come in, your exam will start. You just have to click start, and you can continue with the exam. And if you want, let's say you're done with the exam, you can just click finish it off, and you can leave earlier. So usually I've heard exams go on to like 2, 3 in the afternoon. I finished it by 12:30 or by 1. It was very early. So yeah, it was a good experience. But apart from me being nervous, it all went really well, and the invigilator is also really nice to you. Let's say you got stuck or you're not sure how to start out the exam, you have the invigilator by your side to help you out. Like as you go and as you sit on your seat, an invigilator comes to you just to make sure that you're okay and you get started off. So it was a really nice experience. I mean, I would say it would like much better than a paper based as well. So yeah, this was my experience. And any questions?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Delshi. I think that was very insightful. And yeah, I would also like to reiterate that I think that's I think there has been like, there were like some hiccups when CFA like moved to this computer-based testing, and particularly they had to like accelerate this process with COVID and things like that. But I think in general, I think the experience is this is also, it leads to a more better experience for the candidates because you have that's also one thing they had in mind by moving to computer based. You don't get like this mass scale exams. The usual thing we have with the paper based exam is that everyone's like in one big sort of hall and there's like a lot of noise, there's a lot of you have to deal with all those things. So this is typically the expectation is that this will be a more pleasant experience. So yeah, I hope others also have a similar experience. Yeah, any questions for Delcy specifically on this? So I think some of these questions that have come in, I think Delcy has already answered in terms of, so one was on, do they allow pens and pencils like for PBT? I believe you can't bring in anything outside, right, Delcy?
No, you can't take any stationaries. You are given a sheet and a pen. After the exam, you're supposed to leave it there. You can't take it back as well. So don't worry, you're always given a sheet and a pen to work on.
Okay. Yeah, so I think that's clear. Yeah, and they provide paper as well. Yeah, there was one question on that. Yeah. Yeah, does anyone have any other questions specifically for this on the exam experience? Okay, there's a question from Alex about, do you have to self-manage your break? So could you explain a bit more on the break, how that works?
Yeah, so it's optional. As you said, you can take it or you can straight away get into a certain session. And the 30-minute break, the timer will be running though. So you need to keep on mind, like I finish my exam at this time, around 30, I have started 1. So that has to be on your mind because when you know. So be a bit attentive on that. I just took about 5 to 10 minutes because even the invigilators won't come out and call you. It's up to you. So be a bit cautious there. Yeah, a 5 to 10 minute break would do. I mean, you don't really have to exit. Just stay, outside the exam hall. There you can see the invigilators. Just if you want to go to your washroom, refresh yourself, come back and you can do it. But in case you exceed the time, you will not get additional time. So you got to be a bit cautious there.
So just to clarify, you can just end the first session and then you can just get up and leave. You don't need to, there's no procedure. Okay, right. That's good. Yeah, any other questions? Yeah, then yeah, I think there's one more, so a second. So yeah, from Tivanga, so your second session time starts regardless of if you're there or not. So I think what he's saying is if you exceed that 30-minute time, basically it's like the second session has started.
Exactly.
Okay, right, yeah. And I think the other important point is, I think what was highlighted in the guides as well is that, if you start, you take only a 10-minute break, you don't get that extra 20 minutes for the session, right?
No,
it's still
no.
it's still that 2 hours.
Anyway time.
Yeah. So yeah, so I guess depending on your preferences, you can decide whether to take the full 30-minute break or you can take a shorter break. I guess that's up to you to decide.
Yeah, and one more thing is since all the candidates were there at the exam hall, we started about 10 minutes earlier.
Okay.
So it's always better to be there half an hour before, not exactly at that time, because there are chances where you can start 10 few minutes early for the exam.
Okay. Okay, so that means that for that given start time, everyone will start at that same time. You don't start at the time you arrive. Okay.
Yes, but there was one exception where one candidate arrived exactly at that time and he was allowed in because he didn't exceed though.
Okay, right. So yeah, I think that's also a point that they highlight, that make sure that you're there at least 30 minutes prior. So yeah, I think be very mindful of that. Yeah, as well as you said about the break, that you didn't exclude that. So yeah, I think these are some key things that are highlighted on that. So I think still you can bring the calculator, and I think they said you can even bring 2 if you want. Yeah, I think they will provide the whatever, the paper and pen or whatever to write. Yeah.
and take your statement of entry, which will be emailed to you 2 weeks prior to the exam. That's very important.
Yeah. I think though, to get into it, I think you only need the valid international passport. But yeah, it's still useful to have that because that has all the information. If there is some issue, you have that to show if there's some issue with the scheduling or something. So yeah, useful to have that. Yeah.
And it's better if you could do the Willy mock as well. I think that too helped me out because it was the exact same format.
Okay, that's great. Yeah. So yeah, I would like to reiterate on that as well. So for our candidate council members, that's we provide that Wiley mock exam free of charge. So please do make use of that, as well as in addition we have Swezzer exams as well you can practice on. As well as we are looking to get a few more from some of our other partners from Quartic and Fitch. So we will be making those announcements soon as well about once those become available. So yeah, so thanks very much, Delshi, for that. Yeah.
Thank you, Travis. Thank you all.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so I think these are, I think this has already covered a lot of these in terms of what you can and can't bring. So yeah, you can't bring in that food or drink, but as he said, maybe they might be, given the current situation as well, I think they're more flexible when it comes to bringing in your own water bottle and things like that, so yeah, so look at that, but you can't bring your own computer equipment. So that's because so because of that, I think one thing is important is that if there is an issue with the hardware that you're using, if there's a problem with the screen, with the keyboard, etc., before you start the exam, inform the proctor of any issue, and I think I think what the CFA Institute has also said is if there is a problem that happens midway through the exam, if there's like a power cut or something like that, they will give you that extra time for that. They will make arrangements to accommodate those kind of situations. Because these kind of unexpected things can happen when you're doing with computer-based testing. But that's something to keep in mind. Usually there will be a place to keep your belongings as well, I'm assuming. This is also something that was highlighted by the CFA Institute. I think even in the paper-based exam, something that they did allow were these earplugs. So, if you feel there's a requirement to have that, you can do that. Or I think some centers, they also provide these noise cancelling headphones and things like that. So I'm not sure in Sri Lanka whether they do that, but yeah, these are some other options that might be there. So because I think some of the feedback that has been there is particularly when it comes to like level 3 exams, because they are you're typing on the keyboards, and if you're very noisy with typing, that could be a distraction. But I think as she said, I think overall, I think the experience is much better. The noise levels are much less compared to being in like a massive, like a hall, where you got like all 3 levels like doing the exam at once. So yeah, so just a couple of things to keep in mind with regard to that. So yeah, and with that, we are more or less done with the session. So I will be sharing this the PDF for this, where you have where you can look at all these different links to the additional resources that are there. So this was so here there are a couple of more webinars you can look at. So these so the two the second and third one I listed here is the ones we did from the candidate council. So August 2020 and the Jan 2021 with the latest updates we did, as well as there's one like a detailed one that was done by CFA as well, where they're answering some questions. I think that was also at the start of the year, if I'm not mistaken. These are also a couple of useful websites to look at. So very important to look at those CFA exam updates. If there's changes to the scheduling dates and things like that, the testing schedules, then about the exam deferrals and things like that, because there can be new updates that might come out on things like that. So these are things to look at. Okay. So yeah, so just getting into the Q&A. If there's any questions, we can take them up at this point. So yeah, let me just look at the question that are coming at the moment. Okay, so Semini has one question about the scheduling. So this, I think it would depend on whether you've already registered. So I'm assuming you're someone who has registered for the August exam and now there's been a deferral, or you want to defer it. So so there would be a separate procedure for that usually. So if you go to this website, the CFA deferrals website, that would have details on where the deferral, in order to apply for those deferrals, there is a certain like a form you have to fill out and things like that. So go to that website and see what are the available options, because on the website, on the scheduling, that schedule I showed, that is what is applicable to the general sort of candidate, someone who is a new candidate, or registering first time for a particular exam window. These are the sort of the scheduling windows that are applicable for that. But if you're like a deferred candidate, or you registered for a previous exam and due to some due to the restrictions and things like that, it has changed, the procedure for that would be different. So just have a look at that website to see what is there. Yeah, I think we answered this one, level 2. Okay, yeah, so this is about the communication email from her, but when I click on the link, yeah, so if there's any, I think there's a question from Cheryl with regard to this, the scheduling of the exams. So yeah, so this is something, unfortunately, given the current situation, these things can happen where, the location might change last minute, the date time might change last minute. So those, just be vigilant, just check with any communication that you're getting from Prometric. Unfortunately, in those kind of situations, Prometric would be the contact point, because, all the scheduling related stuff are handled by them. So, if there's any contact information that is provided when you're scheduling and things like that, just follow up if they don't, if they haven't got back to you on time and things like that. So yeah, that's what you would have to do in those situations. Okay, the question from Indivari on, is there a topic division for 2 sessions of level 3? Yeah, I believe there would be. I think even in the paper-based test, I think when it comes to level 3, the structure is a bit anyway different with the when it comes to the paper-based, even with the paper-based testing, the modules are kind of different. It doesn't have that 10 module structure as you have for level 1 and level 2. So again, there would be a division, but I don't think it will. I think probably that will look more closer to the way it was in the PBT exams, because if you look at the level 3 structure, I believe that the way I think they have structured it, it's kind of like the two are sort of integrated. Because in previously with the paper-based testing, the morning paper was like you had the structured response question, and the afternoon question was the item set. Now it's kind of like the two are mixed together. So there's no, so it's, so I believe from what they have said, it's no longer that the second session is all MCQ and morning session is all item set questions. So the two are integrated. So I'm not sure how that the topic split would be happening there. So if you need more information, it's on these links where you can see those information if there is that kind of division is there. Okay. Yeah, I think we've answered that second session. I missed yeah, I think the recording of this would also be made available. We'll be uploading this to our YouTube channel, so you can check it there, as well as you can check the past webinars we also did on this if you want more information on some of these points. Because as I said, this today's session is kind of like an update for that. Okay, so I think I answered all the questions. Let me look at the Q&A one. Yeah, Navinda said, does level 2 also have any structured questions? No, there's no structured question. That is still as shown here. It would be all MCQ type questions. So that's there. Yeah, I think with Abdur, I think the clarification, I think she gave that clarification. You don't get extra time for, if you, in the 30-minute break, if you take only 15 minutes, you don't get that extra 15 minutes to answer the paper. So that's an important thing. Cheryl has said, how do I confirm my confirmed email? No, unfortunately, in Cheryl, with Prometric would be the contact point. So if you have got some communication from them about the date and the venue, if they give you some contact information, you can try to see if you can get further information from them. But yeah, you'd have to basically contact them in those situations. Okay, someone's asking, do we have to log in for our CF accounts in order to take the exam? No, I don't believe you have to do that. Delshi, you can confirm that, right? There's no logging into you have to enter your CFA ID and things like that.
No, Travis, I didn't have.
Okay, right, that's good. Yeah, I think I responded to all the questions. Is there anything else anyone wants to clarify on? Let me check if anything more can come up. Okay, Mahesh has asked about some exam-oriented programs. Yes, so yeah, that's actually nicely leads us into just to highlight some of the next some of the exam prep related events that we have got scheduled. So this, I think, if you're on the WhatsApp group as well, you would have seen this as well as on the Facebook page. So these are the ones we have planned for the moment. So the next one we have upcoming is the structured response masterclass for those who are doing level 3. This would be something extremely useful, to plan and to attend. We also have a few more master classes where we'll be going over specific topics that, so we did a feedback survey earlier in the year, and based on that feedback also we try to accommodate some of these, and we're also happy to say that we've also got more resource persons on board, particularly for the level 2 exam, because I think that's a area we've been finding difficult to find resource persons. So we'll be announcing those soon, for particular subjects. I think particularly like fixed income, derivatives, financial reporting. We'll be doing a couple of we'll be checking with those resource persons and arranging some master classes for those sessions as well. Okay, so these are what we have. As well as, if you haven't already done so, to take advantage of these benefits. And as Delshi said, something very useful is that Wiley mock exam, which is given exclusively for candidate council members. So please take advantage of that. I believe right now the Wiley papers are also made available for those who are sitting for, I think, the August, November exams. So please take advantage of that. So if you haven't registered already, to get free access to all of these the sessions, and as well as to see our recordings of the past events. Okay. Yeah, I think there was another question about mask wearing. Yeah, I believe you probably should be wearing the mask. Yeah, I think it's mandatory to wear the mask during the exam. Yeah. Yeah, does anyone have any of the questions? And yeah, before you leave, do fill out this form. I think Sandhika is sharing with you so that you can access this, as well as I'll also share with you the link to the file. I'll share this here. Yeah, let me share this on the chat. So this is the slides for today's session. So you can have a look at the links, go to these different sites and, just have a look at those. Okay, all the resources that are there. Yeah, let me just share it on the. Yeah, and please, before you go, please fill in the form as well so that we have an idea whether this is useful. And, and as I said, if you want more details, look at those past webinars as well, where we went into more details about the exam structure and those things as well. If there's anything useful, do look at those. Okay? And yeah, if you haven't already joined, so, please join our the WhatsApp group, because that's, I think, the way to keep up to date with all this information, and particularly I think very useful these days with all the cancellations and all these uncertainties that are happening. You can it's a good way to that's like your forum to check with other candidates and things like that on the exam updates. So so please do join the WhatsApp group for those information. Yeah, so if there's no other questions, thanks everyone for joining in today. And yeah, before you go, please do take the copy of the today's the handout, as well as please fill in the feedback form so we have an idea about your how useful you find this. And yeah, I think Sandhika has also shared the links to join the WhatsApp group. And if you want to join the candidate council. Okay, yeah, so thanks everyone, and yeah, hope everyone stays safe, and yeah, and you have a good exam experience. Okay.